Take off the locket you stole from my safe. Now. My daughter froze beneath the ballroom lights. 300 guests turned toward the stage. Allison grabbed the ruby at her throat and shouted, "Security, remove her." My mother is confused. Her husband stepped between us. Grant smiled at the crowd as if I were an embarrassing interruption. "She gave Allison the necklace," he said. "Margaret just doesn't remember." That was their second mistake. Before security reached me, Raymond Pike walked onto the stage. "No one touches her." Raymond was not a stranger trying to involve himself in family business. The Pike family had served as our jewelers for more than 40 years. His father, Walter, had known my husband since they were young men. Walter had repaired my mother Evelyn's jewelry. Raymond had continued the tradition after taking over the store. He knew every mark on that locket. Every stone. Every hidden hinge. Raymond lifted the chain from Allison's neck and examined the clasp. His face hardened. "This was not borrowed," he said. "Someone forced it open." Allison looked at Grant. Grant stopped smiling. Then Raymond reached inside his jacket and removed a sealed envelope. My name was written across it in Thomas's handwriting. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. My husband had been gone for 2 years. Raymond spoke carefully. "My father received this from Thomas 12 years ago. He was told to protect it and pass it to me if necessary." "When was it necessary?" I asked. "When Evelyn's locket was opened without your permission." Inside the envelope was a flash drive. The recording required a password. Grant leaned closer. "Do you know it?" I did. Thomas and I had used the same private phrase for documents we never wanted anyone else to open. Raymond connected the drive to the hotel laptop. I entered the password. Then my late husband's voice filled the ballroom. "Margaret, if you are hearing this, someone has started searching for what Evelyn left behind. Do not give them the key. Do not sign anything. And understand this clearly. Your name may already be on a document you have never seen." Allison's face lost its color. Grant took one step backward. I looked at my daughter. She had stolen from me. But Thomas's warning told me someone else had planned what came next. Before I tell you what I found inside my safe, take one quick moment and look just below this video. Find the red subscribe button and tap it once. When it changes to subscribed, you're all set. Then write your city in the comments. I always like seeing how far these stories travel. Because when I returned home that night, the locket was not the only thing missing. A document carrying my signature was gone too. And I had never signed it. When I reached home, my bedroom safe was open. Nothing had been broken. The correct 6-digit code had been entered. And the small brass key hidden inside Evelyn's locket was gone. Raymond stood behind me while I searched the shelves. Jewelry boxes had been moved. Insurance papers were out of order. A red folder marked Haven Point was missing. Only 3 people had ever known the safe combination. Thomas, me, and Allison. Thomas had been gone for 2 years. 3 days before the gala, Allison had stood in this same room and asked to borrow the locket. "It's for one evening," she said. "The photographers will love it." "No." Her smile disappeared. "Why not?" "Your grandmother left it in my care. I'm your daughter. That does not make it yours." Allison stared at the safe. Then she said something I had not understood at the time. "Grant was right. You'll never hand anything over while you're still able to control it." She left before I could ask what that meant. Now I understood. She had not come only to borrow the locket. She had come to see whether I would open the safe in front of her. Raymond checked the lock. "No damage," he said. Whoever entered knew the code. My desk printer made a soft clicking sound. One page still rested beneath the scanner lid. I lifted it. The heading read, "Temporary resolution of successor steward." Below it was my name. Margaret Harrison. Below that was a signature designed to look like mine. It was close. But Thomas had watched me sign birthday cards, tax forms, and anniversary letters for 43 years. He would have noticed what I noticed immediately. The final stroke leaned the wrong way. I read the document again. It claimed I had appointed Allison to manage something called the Haven Point Trust if I became unavailable or mentally unfit. I had never seen the trust. I had never signed the resolution. And someone had removed the original from my safe. I called Allison. Grant answered her phone. "You broke into my house," I said. He laughed softly. "Margaret, no one broke in. My safe was opened. You gave Allison the code years ago. She did not have permission. You also signed the resolution." "No, I did not." His voice became colder. "You've been under stress since Thomas died. People forget things." There it was again. Not denial. Preparation. Raymond urged me to report the missing documents. The officer who arrived examined the safe and shook his head. "No forced entry. If a family member had the code, this may be a civil dispute." That was the first wall they had built around me. They had used my trust to erase the appearance of a crime. After the officer left, I turned the copied resolution over. A witness had signed the bottom. The name was Nora Bennett. My 17-year-old granddaughter. And according to the date beside her signature, Nora had witnessed me sign it while she was 300 miles away on a school trip. By 8 the next morning, the school had confirmed it. Nora had been on a 3-day history trip in Philadelphia when the resolution was supposedly signed. Her attendance record proved it. Her hotel check-in proved it. A photograph from the Liberty Bell showed her standing with 22 classmates at the exact hour she had allegedly witnessed my signature in Rhode Island. 3 records. 1 impossible signature. And someone had still used my granddaughter's name. I sent Nora a photograph of the final page. She called me less than a minute later. "Grandma, I signed something before the trip." My hand tightened around the phone. "What did your father tell you it was?" "A donor permission form for the gala." He only showed me the last page. Was my name already on it? "I don't know." He covered the top with another folder. Nora's voice became smaller. "Am I in trouble?" "No," I said. "But from now on, you do not sign anything Grant gives you without reading every page." Behind her, I heard a door close. Then Grant's voice. "Nora, who are you talking to?" The call ended. Raymond looked at me. He used his own daughter as a witness without telling her. And Allison helped him reach my safe. Raymond did not answer. He did not need to. We drove to Pike & Sons Jewelers in downtown Newport. The store had belonged to Raymond's family since the 1970s. His father, Walter, had met Thomas when both men were 24. Thomas sent clients to Walter. Walter repaired every important piece of jewelry our family owned. Their business relationship became a friendship. Then a promise. Raymond unlocked a cabinet in the back office and removed a thick leather ledger. "My father recorded every repair by hand," he said. He turned to a page dated 12 years earlier. Evelyn Harrison ruby locket. Reinforced hinge. Hidden compartment preserved. Emergency instructions received from Thomas Harrison. Below that was a 7-digit number. 41700963. Beside it was a small symbol shaped like a drop of water. I had seen that symbol before. It appeared on the missing red folder marked Haven Point. Raymond opened another drawer and removed an old index card. The number was not a bank account. It identified a private archive box at the Newport Historical Society. Thomas had paid for 40 years of protected storage. The brass key from the locket opened the outer cabinet. The number opened the inner drawer. Raymond closed the ledger. If Grant has that key, he is not looking for jewelry. My phone rang. The caller was the Historical Society. A woman introduced herself as the archive director. Mrs. Harrison, someone arrived this morning requesting access to box 41700963. I stood so quickly my chair struck the wall. Who? She presented a letter signed by your daughter. Then the woman lowered her voice. But the man with her kept asking one question. What question? He wanted to know whether your late husband had stored the original Haven Point Trust documents there. We reached the Newport Historical Society 12 minutes later. Grant was already inside. So was Allison. They stood beside a locked archive cabinet while a woman in a navy suit reviewed a stack of papers. The woman introduced herself as Helen Ward, the archive director. Grant held up the brass key from the locket. My wife is the authorized successor, he said. We're here to collect the original trust documents. No, I said. You're here to steal them. Allison flinched. Grant did not. He handed Helen a letter carrying my signature. It claimed I was experiencing memory problems and had authorized Allison to act for me. A physician's statement was attached. I had never met the doctor who signed it. Raymond stepped forward. The Pike family is listed as secondary custodian on box 41700963. Grant's jaw tightened. That arrangement is outdated. It is still valid, Raymond said. My father witnessed the original deposit. Helen checked the record. Raymond was right. Thomas had created a two-person access rule. If the locket was damaged, or if anyone questioned my capacity, no document could be removed without a representative from Pike & Sons present. My husband had not known exactly who would come after the file. But he had known what excuse they would use. Grant pointed at me. She is upset. She is confused. Allison has legal authority. Then why did you bring a private lender? I asked. The woman in the navy suit looked up. I am not a lender. Helen turned the visitor log toward me. The second man who had arrived with Grant had already left. His employer was listed as Atlantic Harbor Capital. On the table sat a folder stamped. Bridge loan closing. $1.2 million. Allison stared at Grant. You said we were only protecting the house. We are. You said nothing about another loan. Grant lowered his voice. Without the original trust agreement, they won't accept the properties as collateral. The room went silent. He had just explained the entire plan. The false resolution made Allison appear to control Haven Point. The physician's letter pushed me aside. The original trust papers would make the deception look legitimate. And the loan would rescue Grant's failing development project. Helen refused to open the cabinet. Conflicting authority requires a court order. That was the second wall. The documents were protected. But they were also beyond my reach. Then Raymond noticed a notation in his father's ledger. Thomas changed the archive instructions 18 months before he passed. Helen checked the file again. Her expression shifted. The original trust agreement is not in this box. Grant turned sharply. Then what is? Helen unlocked a smaller compartment under the two-person rule. Inside was one sealed envelope. My name was written across the front. Below it, Thomas had added 6 words. The key was never for the documents. I opened the envelope. Inside was a map showing 12 properties along the Rhode Island coast. And every one of them belonged to Haven Point. The map led us to a small cedar-shingled office near the harbor. A brass plaque beside the door read, Haven Point Community Trust. I had driven past the building for years. I had never known Thomas owned the land beneath it. Inside, a woman named Miriam Cole was waiting for us. She had been Thomas's trust attorney for nearly 20 years. When I showed her the map, she closed the blinds and locked the front door. Margaret, how much has Grant told you? Nothing true. Miriam nodded as if that confirmed an old fear. Then she opened a cabinet filled with property files. Haven Point controlled 12 homes along the Rhode Island coast. Not mansions. Small cottages. Duplexes. Modest houses rented below market rate to retired teachers, widows, and families recovering from financial hardship. Thomas had purchased the first property 23 years earlier. He used profits from his developments to protect people who might otherwise lose their homes. The current market value was close to $8 million. I stared at her. Why didn't he tell me? He planned to. Miriam placed a letter in front of me. Thomas had written it 6 months before he died. Margaret, I did not build Haven Point to make our family richer. I built it so one family's fear would never become another family's opportunity. My eyes burned, but I kept reading. The trust had one rule above all others. No family member could sell, mortgage, or borrow against the properties for personal benefit. Any attempt to do so would automatically suspend that person's authority. Allison could not legally take the houses. Grant could not use them to save his project. The fortune he had been chasing could never become his. For one brief moment, I thought Thomas had already won. Then Miriam turned her computer toward me. He may have protected the properties, she said. But someone has been trying to change the records. 6 Haven Point homes now carried pending lien notices. Each lien supported the same $1.2 million bridge loan. The borrower was Grant Bennett Development. The authorization was signed by Allison as successor steward. My daughter's signature was real. Raymond looked at me. She knew about the loan. Miriam shook her head. Maybe not all of it. These pages were separated from the full agreement. The signature page described emergency repairs to affordable housing. The missing pages described collateral for Grant's private project. Allison had signed. Grant had supplied the rest. Then Miriam showed me the filing date. It had been submitted that morning. While Grant was standing inside the archive, demanding the original trust documents, his lender was already recording claims against 6 homes. How long do we have? I asked. The liens become active at 5 tomorrow afternoon unless we stop the closing. My phone buzzed. A message from Allison. Mom, Grant says you're trying to destroy our family. Please don't do anything until we talk. Before I could answer, another message arrived. It was from Nora. Grandma, Dad told Mom the loan was for Haven Point repairs. I found the real papers in his office. Then she sent one photograph. At the bottom of the agreement was a second forged signature. Mine. Miriam enlarged the photograph Nora had sent. My signature appeared beneath Allison's. The notary seal belonged to a man named Charles Vane. Miriam recognized the name immediately. He sits on Grant's development board. Raymond leaned closer. So the lender has 2 signatures, a notary, and a successor resolution. All fabricated into one clean package, Miriam said. I looked at the clock. We had less than 24 hours before the liens became active. Then Miriam opened Thomas's original trust agreement. There is one clause Grant did not know about. She turned to a section marked Protective Trigger. Thomas had written that any attempt to mortgage Haven Point property for private benefit would immediately suspend the acting steward. Not after a lawsuit. Not after a board vote. Immediately. Allison's authority was already suspended. Grant's closing documents were already defective. But there was more. Thomas had named one person as independent trust protector. Me. I stared at Miriam. I thought I had no role in Haven Point. You were never meant to manage the homes day to day, she said. Thomas gave you something stronger. What? The power to stop anyone who tried to misuse them. For years, I had believed Thomas kept the trust from me because he did not trust me with it. Now I understood. He had separated control from protection. The steward could manage Haven Point. But only I could freeze it. Miriam prepared an emergency preservation notice. Raymond signed as hereditary custodian. I signed as trust protector. Then Miriam sent the notice to the county recorder, the lender, and every bank connected to the closing. At 3:18 that afternoon, Atlantic Harbor Capital suspended the loan. At 3:26, the county placed a hold on all 6 liens. At 3:31, Grant called me. "What did you do?" His voice was no longer polished. "I used the authority Thomas gave me." "You have no idea what you've interrupted." "I interrupted a loan built on forged documents." "You're destroying Allison's future." "No, Grant. You used Allison's name to protect your own." He went silent. Then he said something that changed the room. "Nora had no right to send you those papers." I looked at Miriam. I had never told Grant that Nora contacted me. Only 4 people knew. Nora, Raymond, Miriam, and me. Someone had warned him. Before I could answer, Allison's voice came through the phone. "Mom, is it true? Did Grant use Haven Point as collateral?" Grant shouted for her to hang up. She did not. Then Allison said, "He told me I was signing emergency repair forms." I believed her. But belief was no longer enough. Miriam checked the lender's transfer log. A portion of the loan had already been released 2 weeks earlier. $400,000. The receiving account carried Allison's name. She whispered, "I've never seen that money." Miriam looked at me. "Then Grant did not just forge your signature." She turned the screen toward Allison. "He built the entire transaction to make his wife look like the mastermind." Grant arrived at Miriam's office before sunset. He did not come alone. A process server stood beside him. So did the same physician whose letter claimed I had memory problems. Grant placed a court notice on the conference table. "You froze the loan," he said. "So I filed to remove you as trust protector." Allison entered behind him. Her eyes were red. She looked at the notice, then at me. "Mom, what does this mean?" Miriam answered before I could. "Your husband is asking a judge to declare Margaret mentally unfit." Allison turned toward Grant. "You said the doctor's letter was only for temporary paperwork." "It is temporary." "No," Miriam said. "It gives you control of Haven Point." Grant's voice sharpened. "Someone has to protect those properties from Margaret's confusion." I stood. "You stole the locket. Forged my signature. Used your daughter as a witness. And now you want the court to call me confused?" The physician shifted uncomfortably. Grant stayed calm. "That is not what the documents show." He slid a medical form toward me. It listed missed appointments. Repeated questions. Difficulty managing finances. None of it was true. But the notes appeared to come from my primary care file. My doctor's name was printed at the top. His signature was not. "Where did you get this?" I asked. Grant smiled. "Family members are allowed to report concerns." That answer told me more than he intended. He had been building a record against me before the gala. Miriam checked the hearing notice. 9 tomorrow morning. The lender's hold would last only until noon unless we obtained a court order. 3 hours. That was all Grant needed. If the judge removed me, he could revive the closing before the liens expired. Then Nora rushed through the front door. She was holding her phone. "Grandma, you need to hear this." Grant stepped toward her. "Give me that." Nora moved behind Raymond. She played a saved voicemail. Grant's voice filled the room. "If your grandmother asks about the papers, tell her she forgets things. Say she seemed confused after Grandpa died. You're protecting your mother." Allison covered her mouth. Grant looked at Nora with cold disbelief. "You recorded me? You told me to lie." His control slipped. For this family, sometimes people do what they're told. The room went silent. Allison looked at me. Then she said the words I had been waiting to hear. "I gave him the safe code. My chest tightened. I know. I thought he needed the locket appraised. I signed the repair forms. I signed the resolution page. I did not read them. You still chose to take what I refused to give you. She nodded. I did. No excuses. No tears asking for forgiveness. Just the truth. Then Miriam received an email from the court. The hearing had been moved. Not 9 in the morning. 8. And Grant had submitted one final request. He wanted the judge to bar me from entering any Haven Point property until my competency was decided. At 6:10 the next morning, Miriam found the name that changed everything. Charles Vane. The same man who had notarized my forged signature was not merely a member of Grant's development board. He was also the managing partner behind Atlantic Harbor Capital. The lender. The notary. And the man waiting to seize 6 Haven Point homes if the loan failed. Grant had not chosen the lender. Charles Vane had chosen Grant. Raymond stared at the records. My father knew that name. He called his jewelry store and asked an employee to open Walter Pike's private client cabinet. Inside was an old file marked with the same waterdrop symbol from Thomas's map. The file arrived by secure scan 10 minutes later. 12 years earlier, Vane had offered Thomas $3 million for the Haven Point properties. Thomas refused. Vane wanted to demolish the cottages and build luxury waterfront rentals. When Thomas would not sell, Vane sent him a final letter. One day, someone in your family will value money more than your rules. Thomas had written a note beneath it. If Vane approaches a successor, he will not offer to buy Haven Point. He will create a debt large enough to take it. My husband had not known Grant. But he had understood Charles Vane. Miriam opened the bridge loan agreement again. The truth had been hidden in the default section. If Grant missed one payment, Atlantic Harbor Capital could take control of the 6 properties used as collateral. Their combined market value was nearly $4 million. The loan was only $1.2 million. This was never designed to save Grant's company, Miriam said. It was designed to fail. The $400,000 placed in Allison's name had not gone to her. It had been transferred the same day into Grant Bennett Development. Then most of it moved again. $275,000 went to a consulting company owned by Charles Vane's brother. Grant had received enough money to believe he was being rescued. Vane had positioned himself to collect the real prize. Raymond spoke quietly. Grant built the false documents. Yes, I said. But someone taught him exactly which documents to build. Allison stood near the window. Did Grant know Vane planned to take the homes? Miriam did not soften the answer. He knew the properties would be lost if the loan defaulted. Allison closed her eyes. Her husband had not only deceived her. He had decided 12 families were acceptable losses. Then Nora handed me her phone. She had found a message Grant sent Vane the night before the gala. Margaret refused to lend the locket. Allison will take it anyway. Once we have the key, we can control the original documents. Vane replied with 4 words. Make the mother look unstable. At 7:45, we entered the courthouse. Grant sat beside his attorney. Behind him sat Charles Vane, wearing a calm smile and pretending they barely knew each other. Grant had betrayed us. But he was not the mastermind. He was the man Charles Vane had chosen to open the door. The hearing began at 8 sharp. Grant's attorney spoke first. He did not mention the stolen locket. He did not mention Nora's recording. He did not mention the forged signature. Instead, he described me as a grieving widow who had become suspicious of everyone around her. Then the physician took the stand. He admitted he had never examined me. But he said Grant had reported memory loss, confusion, and emotional instability over several months. The judge looked at him. You signed a competency letter without meeting Mrs. Harrison? The physician hesitated. I relied on family observations. Which family member? He looked toward Grant. My son-in-law, I said before he could answer. Grant's attorney objected. The judge overruled him. Then Miriam presented Nora's voicemail. Grant's voice filled the courtroom. If your grandmother asks about the papers, tell her she forgets things. For the first time, Grant looked uncertain. But Charles Vane remained calm. That worried me more. At 9:15, Vane's attorney stood. He claimed Atlantic Harbor Capital had acted in good faith. He said the lender had received signed documents, notarized approvals, and proof that Allison was the lawful successor steward. Miriam answered. The trust automatically suspended Allison the moment she attempted to use Haven Point property for private debt. Vane's attorney smiled. That would be true under the original agreement. He placed a document on the judge's desk. But Thomas Harrison amended the trust 18 months before his death. Miriam went still. The amendment carried Thomas's signature. It removed me as trust protector. It gave Allison full authority. And it eliminated the clause that prevented Haven Point properties from being used as collateral. Grant looked at me as if the hearing were already over. Allison whispered, Mom, did Dad really sign that? No. But I could not prove it yet. The signature looked real. The paper was old. The notary stamp predated Thomas's death. And Charles Vane claimed the original had been held in his firm's private records. The judge called a short recess. Before leaving, she said, if this amendment is valid, Mrs. Harrison may have no authority to block the loan. The hold on the liens expired at noon. It was already 10:30. Grant passed me in the hallway. You should have let Allison wear the locket, he said quietly. None of this needed to become public. I looked at him. You still think this is about jewelry? His face hardened. Across the corridor, Raymond was staring at the amendment. Then he pointed to the notary date. Thomas could not have signed this in Newport. How do you know? Raymond pulled out his father's ledger. That week, Thomas was in Boston with Walter Pike. Miriam looked up. A business trip? Raymond shook his head. No. A hospital stay. Walter had driven Thomas there himself. The amendment claimed Thomas signed at 11:20 that morning. At 11:20, Thomas was under anesthesia. And Walter had written down the exact time. The hearing resumed at 11:10. We had 50 minutes before the lien hold expired. Miriam placed Walter Pike's ledger on the evidence table. Raymond stood beside her. My father recorded every appointment, repair, delivery, and trip connected to our family business, he said. On the date of this amendment, he drove Thomas Harrison to Massachusetts General Hospital. The judge examined the entry. Arrival in Boston. 8:45 in the morning. Procedure began at 10:58. Recovery room at 1:12. The amendment claimed Thomas had signed in Newport at 11:20. Grant's attorney objected. A handwritten ledger is not medical proof. Miriam was ready. She displayed the hospital admission record. Then the anesthesia report. Then a parking receipt carrying Walter's name. Thomas could not have signed the amendment. But Charles Vane still did not move. His attorney said the date might have been entered incorrectly. Then let us discuss the paper, Miriam replied. The document was printed on stationery carrying Atlantic Harbor Capital's current logo. A logo the company had not adopted until 8 months after Thomas died. The courtroom changed. Not loudly. Just enough. Grant stopped looking at me. Allison stared at Vane. Miriam placed the bridge loan beside the false amendment. The same office created both documents. Vane's attorney stood. That is speculation. Nora raised her hand from the gallery. The judge allowed Miriam to call her. Nora walked to the witness chair carrying her phone. She showed the message Grant had sent Vane. Once we have the key, we can control the original documents. Then Vane's reply appeared. Make the mother look unstable. Vane finally leaned toward his attorney. Grant saw it. and something inside him broke. "You told me the amendment was real," Grant said. His attorney grabbed his arm. "Do not speak." But Grant was no longer listening. "You said Thomas had already removed Margaret. You said the trust was unprotected." Vane looked directly at him. "I said the family records could support that conclusion." "No," Grant said. "You gave me the amendment." The judge ordered both men to remain silent. Grant kept talking. "You told me to get the locket. You told me the archive would have the originals. You said once Allison signed, the loan would close." Vane's calm expression disappeared. "You chose to use your wife. And you chose me because I was desperate." There it was. Not innocence. Not an excuse. But the structure of the entire scheme. Vane had found a frightened man with a failing company. Grant had found a wife willing to trust him. And both had decided I was the easiest person to erase. Miriam delivered the final blow. The county recorder had completed an emergency review. The 6 liens were rejected. Not delayed. Rejected. The lender had no valid collateral. The judge maintained my authority as trust protector and referred every disputed document for formal investigation. Then she looked at Charles Vane. "This court has heard enough to prevent any further action involving Haven Point." At 11:48, the closing collapsed. 12 minutes before the deadline. I turned toward Allison. Her husband had betrayed her. But before that, she had betrayed me. And now she would have to decide whether telling the truth was the beginning of accountability, or only another way to escape it. By noon, everyone at the gala who had watched my daughter call me confused knew the truth. The charity board suspended Grant from all financial committees. Atlantic Harbor Capital withdrew from the closing. The county recorder rejected every lien connected to Haven Point. And the court ordered Charles Vane to stay away from the trust, its tenants, and every document bearing Thomas's name. Grant stood outside the courtroom with his attorney. For once, he had no polished explanation. No careful smile. No one left to blame. Allison walked toward me slowly. "Mom, I want to make a statement." "To whom?" "To the board. The lender. Anyone who needs it." "What will you say?" Her eyes filled, but she did not look away. "That I stole the locket. That I gave Grant the safe code. That I signed pages without reading them. And that I helped him question your memory because I was afraid of losing my house." It was not the apology I wanted. It was better. It was the truth without decoration. Miriam arranged for Allison's statement to be recorded that afternoon. She admitted that Grant had told her his development company would collapse unless she helped him access Haven Point. She admitted she had chosen her marriage over my trust. But she also provided every email, text message, and bank record Grant had kept from me. The $400,000 placed in her name was frozen. The lender's claim against Haven Point was removed. All 12 families remained in their homes. Then Raymond brought me one final envelope from Walter Pike's files. Thomas had written my name on the front. Inside was a single page. "Margaret, if this letter reaches you, then someone has mistaken your kindness for weakness. Do not protect the person who betrayed you from the consequences of their choice. But do not let anger turn you into someone they can no longer recognize." I read the words twice. Thomas had not told me to punish Allison. He had told me not to rescue her. That distinction mattered. Grant's development company entered court-supervised restructuring. Charles Vane's documents were sent for a full financial review. The physician withdrew his letter and admitted he had relied entirely on Grant's claims. Raymond formally transferred every Pike family record connected to Haven Point into protected custody. Then I returned to the ballroom. The charity board was still meeting. Allison stood before the same stage where she had worn my stolen locket. This time, she removed it herself. She placed it in my hand. "I had no right," she said. I closed my fingers around the ruby. "No," I answered. "You didn't. Grant had chosen me as the easiest person to erase. Charles Vane had chosen Grant as the easiest man to control. And Thomas, 2 years after his passing, had led me through every lie until the mastermind had nowhere left to hide. 1 year later, Haven Point was still standing. All 12 families remained in their homes. The cottages had new roofs. 2 duplexes received updated heating systems before winter. And the trust adopted the protections Thomas should never have needed to create. No family member could control Haven Point alone. Every major decision required 3 independent signatures. 1 from the trustee, 1 from the legal advisor, and 1 from a community representative who lived in a Haven Point property. I remained trust protector. But I was no longer the only person expected to notice when something felt wrong. Grant and Allison sold their large house outside Newport. She moved with Nora into a modest 2-bedroom rental. I did not pay their debts. I did not replace what they had lost. Helping someone rebuild is not the same as protecting them from consequences. Allison began working at Haven Point 3 mornings a week. Not as a trustee. Not as my successor. She answered phones, filed repair requests, and sat with older tenants who were frightened by letters they did not understand. The first time a widow handed her a document and said, "My son told me to sign it," Allison stopped moving. Then she pulled out a chair. "Let's read every page first." I heard Thomas in that sentence. Not his voice. His lesson. Nora returned to school and joined a student program teaching teenagers about financial documents and online scams. She never asked me to excuse the signature page her father had placed in front of her. She understood that being manipulated did not erase the importance of learning from it. Raymond restored Evelyn's locket. He repaired the damaged hinge but left 1 small mark beneath the clasp. A perfect repair would erase the history, he told me. I agreed. Some scars should not remain open. But they should not always disappear. On the 2nd anniversary of Thomas's passing, I brought the locket to the Haven Point office. Allison watched as I placed it inside a glass case beside his final letter. Nora stood next to me. "Will it belong to me someday?" she asked. I looked at the ruby, then at my granddaughter. "No one truly owns it," I said. "We only protect it until the next person is ready." Below the case, we placed a small brass plaque. A legacy is not what a family inherits. It is what a family refuses to destroy. My daughter betrayed me. Her husband used her fear. Charles Vane used his desperation. But Thomas had left me something stronger than money. He left me a path back to the truth. The locket began as evidence of betrayal. It ended as a promise. And I would never again confuse love with blind trust. Now I want to ask you something. Do you believe Allison earned the right to rebuild her relationship with her mother, or would you have ended that relationship the moment she opened the safe? Tell me what you would have done in the comments.